All right, welcome back. This is the Escape course with Dr. VG. We're on lesson 2, which is perspective. We're going to have fun this week, so let's get into it. All right, welcome back again. All right, this is Dr. VG. And before I go into this, I want to talk about something. I mean, it's something that's, indicative of being human. It's kind of how we all are. And so, I was going back over through some of the stuff that I was doing, looking back at some of the videos, and what I realized is this. I look at it and I was thinking about I did it already. I was thinking about some of the experiences that I've had in my classes over the years. I remember one time a student came up to me and said, "Hey, Doc V, why do you say doggone it all the time?" And I thought to myself, I'm not exactly sure. I mean, doggone it, man. And then it dawned on me. I did it again. And it was just it's a trait of what I am. And so I was looking back through some of the videos that we've done already, and it was Yeah, I sounded like a bipedal harmonica with all of this humming. It's like I was creating my own soundtrack to go along with the videos as I was talking to you. So I realized what was going on with that, and I said, you know what? I'm going to work on that. I'm going to stop or make a conscious effort not to do the hum as I was doing in some of my previous videos. Now, as with everything else, as you try to do, there's some times that you're going to slip up, but these are things that we shall move on and work on in the future accordingly. So I found it funny. It was fascinating. Some of my kids looked at it and said, did you know that you do this, Dad? Yeah, good enough. All right, let's move over here to our course management system. And then we shall go inside of our course, looking at, I'm working on it. We're going to look at our syllabus, go down to the bottom, and what we will get to is the week 2 perception and perspective. You're actually looking at one chapter in the book. It is going to be the second chapter in the book. It has to do with perception, but we break that up into, it's a big one. So there are 2 real weeks we get out of that particular chapter. I'm going to go ahead and take a look at our week outline. Remember, it depends on what you're actually doing, where you are at. If you are inside of a formal course, if you're sitting inside of a group, if you are lone wolfing it online, great. The outline may not be for you, but it does really go over some of the topics and concepts and some of the activities that we'd be doing over this particular lesson. We're looking at, we have perspectives. We have a discussion on that. We introduced the steps for critical analysis with regards to perspective. We have, I believe, a couple different activities that you can do that are group-based. Going back in there, let's take a look at what our lesson to-dos are going to be. We, as I said before, we have 1, 2, 3 actual activities that you're actually going to be doing this particular week. If you are inside of a group, that gives you lots of opportunity to sit down and let's talk. You'll have opportunity for doing that. We are looking at reading from the diversity of perspective chapter and then completing assignment 2 on the course site once you're actually done. All right. Let's take a look back, go into our presentation, and then we shall begin. Because what we're actually talking about, for all intents and purposes, you'll notice something when we start. Many times, well, most of these lessons will start with definitions. I mentioned that before, right? I was talking about in our last video, I was talking about racism and bigotry and prejudice and how we didn't necessarily use the words in the correct context in the same way. Here, what we actually do inside of the course is we do explain those things up front, such that everybody's on the same page. We're all talking about the same definitions and so on and so forth. Perception, using one's senses to observe something. I mean, it's what we all do. I mean, that's what we have. I mean, we have this head. I have a robot downstairs with all of these sensors built into it, and it's like a big black boxy head is what the thing is. It's laden with all kinds of things. We have that built into this ball sitting on top of our shoulders. Move it all around. You move in different directions. I can see. We have the visual range. I can hear. I mean, do you think about it? I mean, you close your eyes at night, but your ears are still going. Have you ever tried to just shut down your ears? I was talking to my daughter about that because we were talking about nightmares recently and what could trigger nightmares. You know, what you might have been thinking about during the day before, what you might have been experiencing or exposed to right before you went to sleep, so on and so forth. And we were talking about how you can incorporate sounds that you might be hearing at night into your dream state. I mean, I'm sure everybody's experienced that at some point in their lives. Because for all intents and purposes, our ears are still going. Your nose is still smelling. I mean, some things are still going. And you might have eyelids for your eyes, but those other things are still out there. Perspective, point of view of perception of something that or someone or something or some concept. Opinion, only true freedom we actually have relative to the state of perception, perspective compared to something else. Think of it this way. To me, that camera right there is close. But if you were in Texas, if you were in Maryland, if you were in California, I'm naming all the places I've been to. And so if you were overseas, some other place, the camera that I'm looking at right here is simply not going to be close to you. Now, it might be close to me, but to you, it could be thousands of miles away. So relative to you, the camera is far. We're talking about the same thing, but a different perspective of it. All right, that's what you're actually looking at with what we're talking about. Relative, subjective is something that's internal to me. You know, that camera looks, it looks tall. I suppose it looks compact. That's a subjective assessment on my part. I'd say to some of my children, a camera would look big and chunky and clunky. And they're like, well, you should buy something smaller, Dad. Look at that thing. Well, it depends on how you look at it. My look at it is small compared to cameras that I've seen in the past, cameras that I've had in the past. It's a small little thing. So that's what you're actually talking about. Facts, something that is known to exist or have happened. So what we're going to do here, we're going to take 20 minutes or so. Inside of the book, you have some terms. Think about these three things. How are those terms used in formal and informal settings? Can you remember when you might have been introduced to the terms? Was there ever a time when you understood that your understanding of what those terms are in the book might have been slightly off. I mean, you might have thought something, but it actually meant something else. Once again, that happens all the time. We are learning creatures. We evolve with life. We change through experience, and we always learn. We're always learning. So there's no shame in doing that. If you don't know a word, you don't know it today. You know it tomorrow. So go ahead and take a few minutes. If you're inside of a group, chat amongst yourselves, and we'll be back at it in just a few. All right, we're back again after you've had your discussion. So let's move into this perception a bit more. So our brains allow us to process things, categorize things at will. I'm not going to go into the specifics and the medicine and the biology behind that. That's what books are for. What we're going to talk about, for all intents and purposes, are a few examples. What we're looking at are, there are different things. Subconscious is capable of perceiving lots of things. Our autonomic systems inside of us, breathing, our heartbeat, objects and concepts that might be in a scene that you might not have consciously seen, but were actually there, but you did really perceive. And of course, when you're thinking about it, everybody's different. Humans have different abilities. It's something that we focused on when we were in the Marines, when they were teaching us how to shoot at the rifle range. So they have different levels to train you to be a marksman in the Marines. So I'm only using this to explain how, there are some things that I might be able to perceive or somebody else might be able to perceive that nobody else can. There are certain things. And this particular instance, when you're thinking about it, it had to do with marksmanship. So what they were training you to do was, especially when you're on the longest range, so 500 yards or something like that, you had to calm down. You had to effectively control your breathing so that you can look through the aperture of your sights and try and line up the posts so that you'd be able to hit a target, 500 yards away. Now, the target was real small at that distance, right? Relative to somebody who was actually underneath there. You're wheeling this thing up and down. It's a huge thing. It's huge. But you move it up and it's down. It's a big board, and it had like the silhouette of a shape there. And in order for you to tell the people from afar where you actually hit the silhouette, you had to bring it down, and a couple Marines are down here in a pit, and we're going through looking for the bullet holes. We find it, and then we raise it back up, and we had the stick and a little round disc, and we'd stick the little disc up there to put kind of where your shot would have been. And if you're way back there, you could see the little disc up over the silhouette. So it helped you so that you can start to range your shots in. But what they were actually teaching you to do was to control your breathing. And if you were capable of doing this, not everybody could do it. It was like you could effectively hold your breath and shoot in between the beating of your heart. That's what they were really going for. You kind of timed it with the sway from the blood that was pumping through your body. That's basically what it was. And some people could do it. Some people couldn't. It was you had to be able to sense it. You had to be able to perceive your body swaying back and forth because of the blood pumping through it. And it was something that I had never learned before I had went into the Marines, before I had learned how to do that. I was exceedingly good at it, I found out. I was like, wow, I had no idea I could do that kind of things. That's pretty cool. It's like having, like a mutant. I had like superpowers or something crazy like that. But that's something I talk about with regards to, you can perceive things that some people just can't perceive. There was another instance a few years ago. Everybody recognizes this thing. You should recognize it now. A few years back, what was it, about 5 years ago, it blew up the web. It was this dress. Remember that? The white and yellow or gold or blue and black, whatever the thing was. I remember at the time I had a student. Student came up to me and says, "Hey, Doc V, what color do you think this dress is?" So he sent me this printout or computer. I can't remember exactly how it was presented. He gave it to him. I said, looks like it's white and gold. He said, "No, it's blue and black." I said, "No, that dress looks like it's white and gold, man." He was like, "No, I'm telling you, it's blue and black." Now, I said, well, all right, there's no need to argue. We don't have to fight it out. I said, I'm a scientist. Let's go into the lab. Let's check this out. You understand? I have all kinds of tools for this because that image looks white and gold. You understand? Now, so I had to explain to him because it was a security course that we were actually in, and we were talking about misleading people in forms of social engineering attacks. And so that's where the conversation actually came from. But we were talking about it and going through it, and I was explaining to it pixels, right? You know, every image you have out there, each one of those, what you might not see, but there are millions upon millions of little dots there. Each one of those dots is broken up into their numbers. And for some of those, let's say like a red, green, blue color model, each one of those little pixels is broken up for all intents and purposes and across 3 or 4 different number values. All right. So you could have an individual image or individual pixel in an image a certain color because of this combination of these 3 colors, red, green, and blue. There is a fourth. It's alpha, and it has to do with transparencies, but it has nothing to do with that. So we were looking at that. I pulled the image up in my application and showed the guy there. I said, let's take a look at what these colors are looking at. And so I was moving it across the colors, and as you can see there, a lot of these images that I see, a lot of these pixels, as I move back and forth, you can see shades of yellow or gold. Now you can see shades of really, really, really light blue, or for all intents and purposes, white. But it wasn't. Now, you have to understand, I mean, that's how that is. There are all kinds of Jedi mind tricks out there. You could do all kinds of things with lighting and shadow. That's, for all intents and purposes, that's what it was. It wasn't really asking about the picture. It was really asking about the dress. What color is the dress? The dress is. I mean, as you see now, you can see the dress to the side. It is dark blue and black. But there are lots of things that you can do to adjust the lighting to make it appear such. All right. There are all kinds of things. I mean, and then it's like, oh man, you try to cloud the issue with pixels. I said, man, it has to do with resolution. I said, resolution, pixels, all that's important. Do you understand what that is? He was like, oh man, no, what do you mean? I said, pixels, man, it's pixels. I said, shoot, we have all kinds of things nowadays. I said, all right, I'm going to veer off. He said, I explained the pixels. You can have a massive resolution in an image, and you could zoom all the way in. It looks like that car is a half a mile away. I mean, half a mile way out there. You zoom in on that image, you could zoom all the way into that car, all the way in to see the passenger riding in the seat, picking his nose. You can see that. We have things like that now. It's cool when you think about it, but the person is picking their nose. How they know you're somebody half a mile away looking at me with some camera taking pictures of me picking my nose? Look. All of you card-carrying members of Nose Pickers Anonymous, don't think Doc V is bothering or picking on you. I am not. You are safe doing. What else are you going to do when you're driving a car? I mean, your nose is itching. I mean, you're not going to pull over. You're not going to crash through a tree. You're going to pick a stupid nose. Be done with it. You're free. Get on with your bad self and do what you need to do. But that's what we're talking about, because you can perceive different things. Different people have different abilities. You can see and perceive different things. But the one thing you ought to keep in mind is that our perceptions inform our perspectives. All right? And that's where it really starts to get interesting. And so I'm telling you, I'm saying it gets interesting because right after we had that conversation, the student said, he said what he needed to say, and I had other people walking into the room, and he was walking out and says, yeah, see, I told you, Doc V, it was black and blue. Doc V don't know squat. He walked away, and I just kind of looked at him, and I'm like, oh, well, you win some, you lose some. And that was the end of that. Because we're all different. And that's a good thing. We're human. I love the differences. I like not being able to see things. Shoot, I had a girlfriend long ago. She wanted a red dress. She wanted a hot red dress because that was the in thing. And we went to a store. I don't know where the store was. It was some store. And she saw this dress. It was a cool dress. I really liked it. It was hourglassy, and it was, I don't like a whole lot of flower patterns. And she was trying to get something that I liked. And I liked this particular dress. I did. It was plain, yet orderly, yet it had a feminine look to it, but it was kind of like a uniform. She was military also, but nevertheless, I just liked that one. The only problem is it was orange. She says, no, it's a red dress. I said, no, that dress is orange. She said, I don't know what's wrong with you. Obviously, so she took it over to the person behind the counter. She said, what color is this? She said, that is I don't know, some kind of shade of orange. She actually had a real name for it. And she was like, no, it's not. I said, yes, it is. I said, that is an orange dress. She said, you guys don't know what you're talking about. We went back and we had to pick another dress. I liked that one, but she didn't like the fact that I thought it was orange. Oh, well, that's the way that goes. Can you name something that you perceive differently than somebody else? I mean, if you're sitting around with somebody else, or you have somebody walking behind you while you're watching the video, ask them. What do you see? What do you perceive in this screen? This guy who's doggone yelling at me. What do you perceive? Is this different for you? Is he actually yelling? I mean, is he screaming at me? Because of these differences, one person might experience something that another person simply doesn't understand. Right? That creates issues if we don't understand it. Sometimes you got to accept that I'm just going to look at it differently than you are. I'm going to perceive the world in a different way. Well, I don't know. Some of us could say that the world is round, and some of us could perceive it as being flat. That might cause a difference in opinion and interaction that might not work in the long run. We'll talk about bias in our next lesson. But nevertheless, understanding and accepting these differences between us is key to understanding each other. It's key to understanding where our biases form. It's key to understanding where the prejudice might be coming from, where some of those isms which are formed through a combination of power and prejudice. I mean, you actually have those kinds of things. I mean, the discrimination that was. So you're looking at those kinds of things and how they could have impact in our world. And it all stems from the fact that we are different. We are diverse. And I'm telling you, which you already know, some of this might be an exploration of things that you already realized about yourself, but you just kind of needed to look at it from another perspective, that we are different, and it's because of our differences that we are great. That's what it is. That's how it works. That's why we are able to do the things that we do as humans. All right, so there you have it. That's what we're talking about with regards to perception. We're going to go ahead and move into perspective, but we're going to take a break first. You can go out and do the stuff that you need to do, and then when we come back, we'll move into perspective. We have a couple activities, group activities for you to do. There are a few examples that we'll go on, and then we shall wrap this particular lesson up. I will see you soon.